Prologue. Nature does not negotiate. Before there were nations, there were no borders. Before there was money, there were no markets. Before there were companies, governments, and civilizations, there was already a rule controlling every living thing. A rule older than humanity itself. A rule written into the history of every species that has ever existed. Adapt or disappear. Life has always existed inside a changing environment. The climate changes, resources change, enemies change, opportunities change, and every living creature faces the same question. Can you survive in the world that exists now? Not the world that existed yesterday. Not the world you wish existed, but the world that actually exists. For millions of years, nature has tested every form of life. Some organisms survived because they were powerful. Others survived because they were fast. Others survived because they were intelligent. But many survived because they could adapt. Because when the environment changed, they changed with it. The dinosaurs are one of the greatest examples. For more than 160 million years, they dominated the Earth. They were among the largest and most powerful creatures ever to exist. They controlled land, oceans, and skies. If survival was only about strength, the dinosaurs should still rule the planet today. But they disappeared, not because they lacked power, not because they lacked dominance. They disappeared because the world changed. The conditions that supported their success disappeared. And when the environment changed, their advantages were no longer enough. Meanwhile, smaller creatures survived. Creatures that appeared insignificant compared to these giants. They survived because they possessed qualities suited for a different world. They needed fewer resources. They adapted faster. They found new ways to survive. The lesson was written into nature. Power without adaptation is temporary. This same law has followed humanity throughout history. The Roman Empire became one of the greatest powers the world had ever seen. Its armies conquered continents. Its engineers built extraordinary structures. Its laws influenced civilizations thousands of years later. Rome was not defeated because it was weak. Rome was defeated because the challenges facing it became greater than its ability to adapt. The same pattern appears in business. Kodak helped create modern photography. Nokia dominated the mobile phone industry. Blockbuster controlled video entertainment. These organizations were not destroyed because they lacked intelligence. They failed because the world changed faster than they changed. A company can have the best product today and become irrelevant tomorrow. A person can have valuable skills today and discover that those skills no longer match the future. A nation can have great power today and lose its position tomorrow. The world does not reward yesterday's success forever. The world rewards those who remain useful. But the phrase survival of the fittest is often misunderstood. Many people think it means the strongest survive, the richest survive, the most aggressive survive. But nature teaches a deeper lesson. The fittest are not always the strongest. They are the ones best adapted to their environment. A polar bear is perfectly suited for the Arctic. Its thick fur and body structure allow it to survive extreme cold. But those same qualities would become weaknesses in a hot desert. The trait is not powerful by itself. Its value depends on the environment. This is the hidden law of life. There are no permanent advantages. There are only advantages that remain useful under changing conditions. Human beings face the same challenge. The world is changing faster than ever before. Technology is transforming industries. Artificial intelligence is changing the way people work. Old careers are disappearing. New opportunities are emerging. The person who refuses to learn becomes vulnerable. The person who continues evolving remains valuable. The greatest danger is not failure. Failure can teach. Failure can create wisdom. Failure can reveal weaknesses. The greatest danger is refusing to change after failure. Throughout this documentary, we will explore the hidden law behind survival. We will examine why great civilizations collapse, why successful companies disappear, why some people become stronger after hardship while others break, why technology creates winners and losers, and how individuals can develop the ability to survive an uncertain future. The world will continue changing. You cannot stop it. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot ask reality to remain the same because you are comfortable. Reality moves forward. The only choice is whether you move with it, because the oldest rule of existence remains unchanged. The species that survives is not always the strongest. The company that survives is not always the biggest. The person who survives is not always the most talented. The survivor is the one who can adapt, evolve, grow. Because the world does not belong permanently to those who have power. It belongs to those who know how to remain valuable when the world changes. Chapter 1. The First Law of Nature. Darwin and the Birth of Survival. Long before human beings built cities, created governments, or developed technology, nature was already following a powerful law. A law without written rules. A law without judges. A law without mercy. The law of adaptation. Every living thing on Earth faces the same challenge: change or disappear. For millions of years, life has existed in a constant struggle with its environment. Animals must find food. They must avoid predators. They must survive disease. They must compete for resources. Plants must adapt to changing climates. Entire species must respond to new conditions. Nature does not reward effort alone. Nature rewards those who are capable of surviving the conditions around them. This idea transformed humanity's understanding of life through the work of one man, Charles Darwin. In the 19th century, Darwin introduced one of the most influential scientific ideas in history: the theory of evolution through natural selection. His discovery challenged the belief that all species were permanent and unchanging. Instead, Darwin revealed that life is constantly adapting across generations. Species are not frozen in time. They are shaped by their environment. During his voyage aboard the HMS Beagle, Darwin observed thousands of plants and animals across different regions of the world. One place especially influenced his thinking: the Galapagos Islands. There, Darwin noticed something remarkable. Animals living in different environments often developed different characteristics. Birds on different islands had different beak shapes. Those differences affected what they could eat. A bird with a beak better suited for available food had an advantage. Over many generations, those advantages could become more common. This was the foundation of natural selection. The process works through several principles. First, individuals within a species are different. No two organisms are exactly the same. Some differences provide advantages. Second, some of these differences can be passed to future generations. Third, environments create challenges. Food becomes limited, climate changes, predators appear, competition increases. Finally, individuals with useful characteristics are more likely to survive and reproduce. Over time, those characteristics become more common. But this leads to one of the most misunderstood ideas in history: survival of the fittest. Many people interpret this phrase incorrectly. They believe it means the strongest survive, the richest survive, the most aggressive survive. But that is not the true meaning. Fitness in evolution does not mean physical strength. It means how well something fits its environment. A small animal can survive while a larger animal disappears. A slower creature can survive while a faster creature fails. A less aggressive species can survive while a stronger predator becomes extinct. The question nature asks is not, who is the strongest? The question is, who is best adapted to the conditions that exist? Consider the polar bear. The polar bear is one of the most perfectly adapted animals on Earth. Its thick fur protects it from freezing temperatures. Its body stores energy. Its large paws help it move across ice. In the Arctic environment, these characteristics create an advantage. But imagine placing that same polar bear in a hot desert. The qualities that made it successful would become disadvantages. Its thick fur would create problems. Its large body would require more resources. Its adaptation would no longer match its environment. This reveals one of nature's deepest lessons. An advantage is only an advantage when the environment rewards it. The same principle applies to human beings. A skill that is valuable today may become less valuable tomorrow. A business model that creates success in one generation may fail in another. A strategy that wins one battle may lose the next. The world constantly changes the conditions of survival. The dinosaurs provide another powerful lesson. For millions of years, dinosaurs dominated Earth. They were powerful. They were diverse. They occupied almost every environment. They appeared unstoppable. But their success depended on a specific world. When that world changed, their dominance ended. Their strength was not enough. Their size was not enough. Their history was not enough. The environment had changed, and the survivors were those capable of existing in the new conditions. This pattern repeats throughout history. A person becomes successful because they develop valuable skills. A company becomes powerful because it creates something people need. A nation becomes influential because it develops strong systems. But success creates a dangerous illusion. The illusion that what created success will always create success. Many people fail because they protect the methods that worked in the past instead of preparing for the challenges of the future. They say, "This is how we have always done things." But history shows that this sentence has destroyed many great organizations. The natural world teaches another important lesson. Adaptation requires change. A species cannot evolve while remaining exactly the same. A person cannot grow while protecting every old habit. A company cannot survive while refusing innovation. A civilization cannot remain powerful while refusing reform. Change is uncomfortable because it requires leaving behind something familiar. But survival has always demanded transformation. The seed must break before becoming a tree. The caterpillar must transform before becoming a butterfly. The human being must grow beyond previous limitations. The greatest survivors are not those who never face difficulty. They are those who respond intelligently when difficulty arrives. They learn, they adjust, they improve. This is why adaptability has always been humanity's greatest advantage. Human beings are not the strongest animals. We cannot outrun the fastest creatures. We cannot overpower the largest predators. But we possess something unique: the ability to learn, the ability to cooperate, the ability to create tools, the ability to imagine solutions. Our greatest survival weapon has never been our physical strength. It has been our ability to change. The first iron rule of survival is therefore simple. Do not ask only how strong you are today. Ask, can you become what tomorrow requires? Because the world will continue changing. New challenges will appear. Old advantages will disappear. And the future will belong to those who understand the first law of nature. Adaptation is the price of survival. Chapter 2. Darwin's Law Misunderstood. Why survival is not about strength alone. Throughout human history, people have been fascinated by strength. We admire the strongest warrior, the largest army, the richest nation, the most powerful company, the person who appears impossible to defeat. Human beings naturally connect strength with survival. But nature tells a more complex story. Because throughout the history of life, many powerful beings have disappeared, and many seemingly weaker beings have survived. The reason is simple. Strength alone is not enough. The phrase survival of the fittest has become one of the most famous ideas in human history, but it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many people hear these words and imagine a brutal world where the strongest crush the weakest. They imagine survival as a competition where only the most powerful win. But this interpretation misses the deeper lesson. Survival is not about being the strongest creature. It is about being the creature most capable of responding to change. The phrase, survival of the fittest, was introduced by the British philosopher Herbert Spencer after studying the ideas of Charles Darwin. Spencer used the phrase to describe the relationship between organisms and their environments. Later, Darwin adopted the expression in later editions of On the Origin of Species. However, over time, society simplified the meaning. The word fittest became confused with strongest. But these are not the same thing. A bodybuilder may be physically stronger than almost everyone around him. But physical strength alone does not guarantee survival. A person can be powerful but lack adaptability. A company can be wealthy but unable to respond to new competition. A nation can possess weapons but lack innovation. Strength without adaptation becomes fragile. Nature gives us countless examples. The cheetah is one of the fastest animals on Earth. Its speed is extraordinary. It can accelerate faster than almost any other land animal. But speed alone does not guarantee survival. The cheetah still depends on the availability of prey, a suitable environment, successful hunting, energy management. If conditions change, speed may no longer be enough. Now consider the tortoise. Compared to many animals, the tortoise appears slow. It cannot run. It cannot chase prey. It does not dominate through physical power. Yet some tortoise species have survived for millions of years. Why? Because their survival strategy fits their environment. They have protection, patience, efficient energy use, resilience. The tortoise does not survive by being stronger. It survives by being adapted. This reveals a powerful truth. Nature does not reward the strongest. Nature rewards what works. The same lesson appears in human history. Many civilizations became powerful because they developed methods that matched their environment. But when conditions changed, those same methods sometimes became weaknesses. A warrior trained for one type of battle may struggle when warfare changes. A company successful in one market may fail when technology transforms the industry. A person skilled in one profession may struggle when demand shifts. The greatest danger is not weakness. The greatest danger is becoming perfectly adapted to a world that no longer exists. Consider the dinosaurs. For millions of years, they dominated Earth. They were among the most successful creatures in history. They were large, powerful, highly specialized. But specialization can create vulnerability. When the environment changed, many dinosaurs could not adjust quickly enough. Their greatest advantage became a limitation. This happens in human life too. A person becomes successful because of certain habits. Those habits create results. Then the person becomes attached to them. They stop questioning. They stop learning. They stop adapting. The very thing that created success becomes the reason success disappears. This is known as the danger of past success. Success creates confidence. Confidence creates comfort. Comfort can create blindness. A person begins believing, I succeeded because my current way is perfect. But sometimes success happened because the environment rewarded that strategy at that particular moment. When the environment changes, the strategy must change too. This is why some intelligent people fail. Intelligence is valuable, but intelligence without flexibility can become a trap. A highly educated person can still refuse new ideas. A talented professional can still become outdated. A successful leader can still ignore warning signs. Knowledge matters, but the ability to update knowledge matters more. The human species survived because of adaptability. Humans were not the strongest creatures. We had no claws like lions, no speed like cheetahs, no natural armor like many animals. But we possess something more powerful: the ability to learn, the ability to cooperate, the ability to create tools, the ability to change our behavior. A human being could enter a cold environment and create clothing, could enter dangerous territory and create weapons, could cross oceans and build ships, could study disease and create medicine. Our greatest advantage has always been transformation. This is why adaptability is the highest form of intelligence. A person who knows many facts but cannot adjust is vulnerable. A person who can learn, adapt, and solve problems remains valuable. The modern world follows the same law. Technology changes, industries transform, new competitors appear. The skills that create success today may not create success tomorrow. The survivor asks, what does the future require from me? Not, what worked for me in the past. The strongest person is not the one who refuses to change. The strongest person is the one who can change without losing their purpose. Because true strength is not rigidity. A rigid object breaks under pressure. A flexible object absorbs pressure and survives. The tree that bends during the storm often survives longer than the tree that refuses to move. The second iron rule of survival is therefore, do not measure yourself only by the strength you possess today. Measure yourself by your ability to become stronger tomorrow. The world is constantly changing the battlefield. New challenges will appear. Old advantages will disappear. And those who survive will not always be the strongest. They will be the ones who understand the new rules first. Survival does not belong permanently to the powerful. Survival belongs to those who adapt. Chapter 3. The Strongest Can Fall. How great powers collapse throughout history. One of the greatest illusions has been the belief that power creates permanence. A powerful empire believes it will always remain powerful. A successful company believes its success will continue forever. A wealthy individual believes their position cannot change. But history repeatedly delivers the same message. Nothing that refuses to adapt remains dominant forever. The rise of great powers often follows a similar pattern. A society faces difficult conditions. Those difficulties create discipline, innovation, and determination. The society becomes stronger. Success follows. Resources increase. Influence expands. Confidence grows. But then something dangerous happens. The very success that created strength begins creating weakness. Success creates comfort. Comfort reduces urgency. Reduced urgency slows adaptation. And when the environment changes, the once powerful system discovers that its old strengths are no longer enough. The Roman Empire. When expansion became a burden, few examples demonstrate this better than the Roman Empire. Rome was one of the greatest civilizations in human history. At its height, it controlled enormous territories across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Rome possessed one of the most disciplined armies in history, advanced engineering, sophisticated administration, impressive infrastructure, a powerful legal system. Rome was not weak. Rome was the dominant force of its era. But Rome faced a hidden problem. Its greatest strength created its greatest challenge. Expansion. Every new territory brought advantages, more resources, more wealth, more influence. But every new territory also created responsibilities, more borders to defend, more soldiers to maintain, more officials to manage, more resources required. The empire became so large that maintaining control became increasingly difficult. A system designed for conquest struggled with the complexity of governing what it had conquered. This teaches a powerful lesson. Growth without adaptation creates pressure. A person can experience the same thing. At the beginning of a career, ambition creates energy. A person works hard, learns, improves, creates success. But after success arrives, maintaining that success requires a different mindset. The hunger that created achievement can disappear. The cost of maintaining power requires resources. Rome needed enormous resources to maintain its military, its administration, its infrastructure. Economic pressures increased. Political conflicts grew. The system became harder to manage. A powerful system can become trapped by its own size. The same thing happens in organizations. A small company can move quickly. A large company may have more money but slower decisions. A large empire can have more territory but more problems. The leadership problem. Another weakness appeared inside Rome: political instability. The empire experienced civil conflicts, competing leaders, struggles for power. A system becomes vulnerable when internal competition damages its ability to respond to external challenges. A civilization does not only need strength, it needs coordination. It needs the ability to recognize problems and correct them. The Ottoman Empire. When the world changed, the Ottoman Empire lasted for more than 6 centuries. At its height, it was one of the most powerful states on Earth. It controlled important regions connecting Europe, Asia, and Africa. Its strength came from military organization, administration, strategic location, economic influence. But the world around it changed. A new era emerged. The Industrial Revolution transformed global competition. Power increasingly depended on factories, science, technology, modern weapons, industrial production. The battlefield was changing. But adapting to a new battlefield is difficult for successful systems. Why? Because old systems create powerful interests. People benefit from existing structures. They gain status, wealth, influence. Changing the system can threaten those advantages. This creates a survival challenge. Can a successful system sacrifice parts of its past to protect its future? The Soviet Union. Power without flexibility. The Soviet Union became one of the world's strongest powers. It achieved industrial growth, scientific accomplishments, military strength, global influence. It competed with the United States as a superpower, yet the system eventually collapsed. One important lesson comes from its difficulty adapting economically and institutionally. A system can possess enormous strength in one area while becoming vulnerable in another. Military power alone cannot guarantee survival. Resources alone cannot guarantee survival. Size alone cannot guarantee survival. A system must be able to learn. The information problem. One of the greatest dangers for any organization is losing contact with reality. If leaders receive inaccurate information, they make poor decisions. A company that hides declining sales cannot solve its problems. A government that ignores economic problems cannot reform effectively. A person who refuses to acknowledge weaknesses cannot improve. The principle is universal. A system that cannot see reality cannot adapt to reality. The British Empire. The power of adaptation. Britain provides a more complex example. Its rise came largely from adaptation. Britain developed advantages through naval innovation, industrialization, global trade, financial systems. The Industrial Revolution gave Britain enormous influence, but other nations learned. The United States and Germany developed powerful industrial economies. The world became more competitive. 2 world wars weakened Britain's position. The empire transformed. Britain's decline does not mean it was unsuccessful. It means the environment changed. A strategy that creates dominance in one era may not guarantee dominance in another. The pattern behind the fall of giants, when we compare Rome, the Ottoman Empire, the Soviet Union, and Britain, we see the same cycle. Stage 1, innovation. A society develops a powerful advantage. Stage 2, success. The advantage creates wealth and influence. Stage 3, confidence. The society believes its methods will continue working forever. Stage 4, resistance. Change becomes uncomfortable. Old systems are protected. Stage 5, decline. New competitors adapt faster. The old power loses its advantage. The personal lesson. This law applies to individuals too. A person learns a skill. That skill creates success. Success creates comfort. Comfort reduces learning. A new generation develops new skills. The old advantage disappears. The mistake is believing, my past success guarantees my future. It does not. Your past proves what you achieved. It does not prove what you can achieve tomorrow. The third iron rule, the lesson from fallen powers, is never become so attached to what made you successful that you cannot become what the future requires. The greatest danger is not losing power. The greatest danger is believing you can never lose power. Because the moment a person, company, or nation stops adapting, decline has already begun. History does not only remember the powerful, history remembers those who understood change. The strongest can fall, the greatest can decline. The only permanent advantage is the ability to evolve. Chapter 4, the adaptation advantage. Why small players defeat giants. Throughout history, people have assumed that size creates victory. The biggest army wins. The largest company dominates. The wealthiest nation controls the future. Sometimes this is true, but history repeatedly reveals another powerful truth. Size creates strength, but adaptability creates survival. A smaller force that understands change can defeat a larger force that refuses to change. David and Goliath. The first lesson of changing the battlefield, one of the oldest examples of unexpected victory, is the story of David and Goliath. A giant warrior stood against a young shepherd. By traditional thinking, the outcome seemed obvious. Goliath had physical strength, combat experience, armor, reputation. David appeared weaker. But David understood something important. He did not need to fight the battle according to Goliath's rules. Goliath expected close combat. David used distance. Goliath depended on size and strength. David depended on speed, accuracy, and strategy. The victory was not simply about courage. It was about understanding the battlefield. The lesson: the smaller competitor wins when they discover a different way to compete. Why giants become vulnerable. Large organizations have enormous advantages. They have money, resources, experience, established customers, powerful brands. But success creates weight. A large organization often develops complex systems, slow decision-making, internal politics, attachment to old methods. The same structure that created success can make change difficult. A small organization often has fewer resources, but it may have speed, flexibility, willingness to experiment, freedom from old traditions. When the environment changes, these qualities become powerful advantages. Kodak, the company that saw the future but could not embrace it. Kodak represents one of the greatest lessons in business survival. For decades, Kodak was one of the world's most successful photography companies. It had a famous brand, technical knowledge, loyal customers, global influence. But photography changed. Film photography was replaced by digital technology. The irony is that Kodak was not unaware of digital photography. The company had engineers who developed early digital camera technology. The problem was not ignorance. The problem was conflict. Digital photography threatened the profitable film business that had made Kodak successful. The company faced a painful decision: protect the business that created its success, or sacrifice that success to create the future. Kodak protected the past. The market moved forward. The lesson: sometimes the thing that made you successful becomes the thing preventing your next success. Blockbuster versus Netflix. When convenience changed the game, Blockbuster dominated video rental. At its peak, it had thousands of stores, millions of customers, strong brand recognition. It looked unstoppable. Then the environment changed. Customers began wanting easier access, fewer restrictions, greater convenience. Netflix introduced a different approach, first through DVD delivery, later through streaming. The competition was no longer simply who has the biggest video rental store. The competition became who can deliver entertainment most effectively. Blockbuster saw itself as a rental company. Netflix saw itself as an entertainment technology company. That difference in identity changed the future. The lesson: companies often fail not because they misunderstand their product, but because they misunderstand what business they are truly in. Nokia. Winning yesterday's game, Nokia was once the leader of mobile phones. It had enormous strengths, excellent hardware, strong engineering, global distribution, trusted reputation. But the smartphone revolution changed the battlefield. The phone was no longer only a communication device. It became a computer, a camera, an entertainment platform, a gateway to applications. The competition moved from hardware to ecosystems. The winner was no longer simply the company making the strongest phone. The winner was the company creating the strongest user experience. Nokia was successful in the old game, but the rules changed. The lesson: you can be the best player in yesterday's competition and still lose tomorrow's competition. Clayton Christensen and the Innovator's Dilemma. Harvard professor Clayton Christensen studied why successful companies fail. He identified a powerful pattern. Successful companies often listen carefully to their existing customers. Normally, this is good, but sometimes the future begins with something existing customers do not yet value. A new technology may appear, smaller, cheaper, less profitable, less impressive. The established company ignores it. Then the technology improves. Eventually, it becomes the new standard. The problem is not lack of intelligence. The problem is that success creates commitments. A company becomes trapped protecting what already works. The competence trap. The competence trap occurs when a strength becomes a weakness. A company becomes excellent at one method. It improves that method. It invests heavily in it. Then the world changes. The company continues improving the old solution while competitors create the new one. This happens to individuals too. A person develops a skill. The skill creates income. The person stops learning. The industry changes. The skill loses value. The question is not, what made me successful? The question is, what will make me valuable in the next environment? Amazon. The power of reinvention. Amazon began as an online bookstore, but it did not remain only a bookstore. It expanded into online marketplaces, logistics, cloud computing, digital services. The company survived because it continued redefining itself. It focused less on protecting one product and more on solving customer problems. The lesson: the strongest organizations are not those that defend their identity. They are those that can transform their identity when necessary. The survival advantage of speed. When conditions are stable, size often wins. Large organizations can use their resources, but when conditions change quickly, speed becomes valuable. A small competitor can test ideas, fail quickly, learn, adjust. A large competitor may take years to make the same change. The personal survival lesson: individuals face the same battle. A person cannot depend forever on one job title, one skill, one industry, one source of income. The modern survivor develops adaptability. They ask, what problems can I solve? What skills are becoming valuable? How can I continue learning? The fourth iron rule. The lesson from David, Kodak, Netflix, Nokia, and Amazon is, size can create power, but adaptability creates survival. The future does not always belong to the biggest player. It belongs to the player who understands the new rules first. The world is constantly changing the battlefield. The question is not, how powerful are you today? The question is, can you remain valuable when tomorrow's battlefield looks completely different? The giant can fall. The small can rise. The adaptable can survive. Chapter 5. The Human Battlefield. Psychology, fear, and the struggle to adapt. The greatest battles of survival are not always fought against external enemies. Many of the most important battles happen inside the human mind. A person can have talent and still fail. A company can have resources and still collapse. A nation can have power and still decline. Why? Because the ability to survive depends not only on external strength, it depends on the ability to control the internal world. The invisible battlefield. Every day, human beings face a battle between two forces. One force wants safety. The other force demands growth. One says, stay where you are. The other says, become something more. This conflict has existed throughout human history. Our ancestors survived because they were cautious. Fear protected them from danger. Familiar patterns helped them make decisions quickly. But the same instincts that protected humans in the past can become obstacles in a rapidly changing world. The ancient brain in a modern world. The human brain evolved in environments where survival depended on immediate threats. A person had to recognize, Predators, enemies, hunger, physical danger. The brain developed mechanisms to avoid uncertainty. It naturally prefers familiar situations, predictable outcomes, established routines. This helped humans survive. But today, many threats are different. The danger is not always a predator. It may be a changing economy, new technology, outdated skills, poor decisions, resistance to learning. The modern world rewards people who can move toward uncertainty, but the human brain often tries to avoid it. This creates one of the greatest survival challenges. The need to adapt faster than our instincts resist change. The comfort trap. Comfort feels like success. When life becomes stable, people naturally want to protect that stability. A person finds a reliable job. A company creates a profitable product. A nation achieves influence. Then a dangerous thought appears. We have arrived. But survival requires a different mindset. Success is not the end of adaptation. Success is when adaptation becomes even more important. Comfort can quietly weaken a person. A person who never challenges themselves may lose confidence. A company that never faces competition may lose innovation. A society that never prepares for crisis may become vulnerable. The lesson: comfort is valuable for recovery, but dangerous when it becomes permanent. Carl Jung. The importance of facing yourself. The psychologist Carl Jung studied the hidden parts of human personality. One of his most famous concepts was the shadow. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves we prefer not to see: weaknesses, fears, insecurities, hidden desires, uncomfortable truths. Jung believed that personal growth requires confronting these hidden parts. This connects directly to survival. A person who refuses to acknowledge weaknesses cannot improve them. A leader who cannot accept criticism cannot correct mistakes. A company that hides problems cannot solve them. The greatest threat is not having weaknesses. Everyone has weaknesses. The greatest threat is pretending they do not exist. Self-awareness as a survival advantage. A person with self-awareness can ask, what am I doing wrong? What skill am I missing? What must I improve? What reality am I avoiding? These questions create growth. A person without self-awareness remains trapped. They blame circumstances, other people, bad luck, but they never examine the one thing they can change: themselves. Viktor Frankl. Survival through meaning. One of the deepest studies of human survival comes from psychiatrist Viktor Frankl. During World War II, Frankl was imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps. He experienced extreme suffering, yet he observed something remarkable. People facing similar conditions responded differently. Some lost all hope. Others maintained an inner strength despite terrible circumstances. Frankl concluded that meaning plays a powerful role in human endurance. A person who has a reason to continue can survive enormous difficulty. Purpose does not remove suffering, but purpose gives suffering direction. A person building a future can tolerate present hardship. A person protecting something valuable can endure sacrifice. A person with a mission can continue when comfort disappears. Daniel Kahneman. The mind's hidden errors. Psychologist and Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman studied how humans make decisions. His research showed that people often make predictable mistakes because the mind uses shortcuts. These shortcuts can help survival, but they can also prevent adaptation. Confirmation bias. Humans naturally seek information that supports what they already believe. A business leader believes their company is unbeatable. They ignore warning signs. A person believes they cannot change. They notice only evidence supporting that belief. A nation believes it is superior. It ignores competitors. The danger: a person can become trapped inside their own assumptions. Loss aversion. Humans often fear losing something more than they desire gaining something new. This explains why people remain in failing situations. A person thinks, if I change, I might lose what I have. But they forget, if I refuse to change, I might lose even more. The fear of losing the present can prevent building the future. Carol Dweck. The mindset of adaptation. Psychologist Carol Dweck studied how people view ability. She identified two major mindsets. Fixed mindset. A person believes abilities are permanent. Failure becomes proof of limitation. Challenges become threats. Criticism becomes an attack. The person protects their image instead of improving themselves. Growth mindset. A person believes abilities can develop. Failure becomes feedback. Challenges become opportunities. Criticism becomes information. The person focuses on improvement. The growth mindset is naturally aligned with survival. Why? Because survival requires learning identity. The invisible prison, one of the strongest barriers to adaptation is identity. People often say, "This is who I am," but sometimes that statement becomes a limitation. A person says, "I am not good with technology. I cannot start again. I am too old to learn. I have always been this way." But the world does not adjust itself to protect our identity. Reality changes. The survivor asks, "Who do I need to become?" Emotional control under pressure. Survival requires decision-making during uncertainty. Fear can create panic. Anger can create mistakes. Pride can prevent learning. A person who controls emotions gains an advantage. This does not mean becoming emotionless. It means emotions provide information, but they do not control decisions. The Stoic philosophers understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote about maintaining control over one's response to external events. The principle: you cannot control everything that happens, but you can control how you respond. The antifragile mind, the strongest mindset, is not one that avoids difficulty. It is one that learns from difficulty. A fragile person says, "Why did this happen to me?" An adaptive person says, "What can I learn from this?" A fragile person sees failure as destruction. An adaptive person sees failure as information. The fifth iron rule: the greatest survival battle is not always against the world. It is against fear, ego, comfort, denial, resistance to growth. The person who defeats these internal enemies becomes capable of facing external challenges. Because the ultimate survival advantage is not simply intelligence, it is the willingness to change. The world will continue changing. New challenges will appear, new opportunities will emerge. The question is not, can you avoid change? You cannot. The question is, can you transform yourself when change arrives? The mind that refuses to adapt becomes a prison. The mind that learns to adapt becomes a weapon. Chapter 6. The Antifragile Human. Turning pressure into power. Throughout history, human beings have tried to answer one important question. Why do some people collapse under difficulty, while others become stronger because of it? Two people can experience the same crisis, the same failure, the same loss, the same uncertainty, yet they can emerge completely different. One becomes broken, the other becomes transformed. The difference is not always the difficulty itself. The difference is how they respond to it. The three types of systems. To understand survival at the highest level, we must understand three different types of systems. The first is fragile, the second is resilient, the third is antifragile. The fragile system. A fragile system is damaged by pressure. It works only when conditions are comfortable. It appears strong when everything is easy. But when challenges arrive, its weaknesses are exposed. Examples: a person who has never developed discipline, a company that depends on one product, a financial system with no protection against crisis, a society that cannot handle uncertainty. Fragile systems are not always destroyed by large problems. Sometimes small shocks reveal weaknesses that already existed. The resilient system. A resilient system can survive pressure. It can bend without breaking. A resilient person experiences failure but recovers. A resilient company faces competition but continues operating. A resilient society faces crisis but rebuilds. Resilience is powerful, but resilience has a limitation. It returns to its previous condition. It survives the storm, but it does not necessarily become stronger because of the storm. The antifragile system. An antifragile system is different. It improves because of pressure. This concept was developed by writer and thinker Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Taleb argued that some systems require uncertainty, stress, and challenges to develop. Pressure becomes a source of improvement. The human body is an example. When muscles experience controlled stress through exercise, they adapt. They become stronger. Without challenge, the body becomes weaker. The same principle applies to the mind. A person who constantly challenges themselves develops greater capacity. The difference between suffering and growth, however, there is an important distinction. Not all pain creates strength. Suffering alone does not automatically improve someone. A person can experience hardship and become bitter, fearful, defeated, hopeless. The transformation happens when difficulty is processed correctly. The important question is not, did you suffer? The important question is, what did you build from what happened to you? Failure as a teacher. Many people fear failure because they believe failure defines them. They think, I failed, therefore I am a failure. But this mindset prevents growth. A better interpretation is, I failed, therefore I have information. Scientists understand this principle. An experiment that does not produce the expected result is not useless. It reveals something. It shows what does not work. It moves knowledge forward. The same applies to life. A failed business can teach customer behavior, financial discipline, leadership mistakes, market realities. A failed relationship can teach communication, self-awareness, emotional maturity. A career setback can reveal missing skills, new opportunities, the need for reinvention. Failure becomes destructive only when nothing is learned from it. The entrepreneurial mindset. Many successful entrepreneurs experienced failure before achieving success. Failure forced them to adapt. It forced them to improve their ideas, understand people better, develop discipline, become more strategic. The entrepreneur does not love failure. The entrepreneur understands that uncertainty is part of creation. A person who never risks anything may avoid failure, but they also avoid growth. The goal is not reckless risk. The goal is calculated exposure to challenges that develop capability. Voluntary hardship. Ancient thinkers understood the value of controlled difficulty. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort. They believed a person should sometimes experience hardship by choice, so they would be prepared when hardship arrived unexpectedly. Examples: training the body, learning difficult skills, practicing discipline, saving money instead of spending everything, doing uncomfortable but necessary tasks. Why? Because comfort does not prepare you for difficulty. Training prepares you for difficulty. The warrior principle. A warrior does not wait for battle to begin before developing strength. Training happens before the conflict. The same principle applies to life. A person who develops discipline during peaceful times is better prepared during difficult times. Preparation creates confidence. The anti-fragile companies also follow this principle. A company that faces competition is forced to improve. Competition creates pressure. Pressure creates innovation. A company protected from all challenges may become lazy. This is why some companies become stronger after crises. A crisis forces them to examine their weaknesses, their assumptions, their methods. They remove what no longer works. They create something better. The antifragile nation countries can also become stronger through adversity. After devastating events, some societies rebuild by learning from their failures. Examples: Japan after World War II, South Korea after the Korean War. Both faced enormous difficulties, but they invested in education, technology, industry, human development. They transformed pressure into progress. The lesson: a crisis can destroy a society, or it can become the pressure that forces transformation. The danger of overprotection. A person, organization, or society can become weak when protected from every difficulty. A child who never experiences responsibility may struggle when independence arrives. A worker who never faces challenges may struggle when conditions change. A company protected from competition may lose its ability to innovate. Protection has value, but too much protection removes the opportunity to develop strength. Building an anti-fragile life. An anti-fragile person does not depend on one source of strength. They build multiple foundations. Physical strength. A healthy body creates energy and resilience. Mental strength, learning, and emotional control create better decisions. Financial strength, savings, and valuable skills create options. Social strength, strong relationships create support and opportunities. Professional strength, adaptable skills create long-term value. If one area experiences difficulty, the others provide support. The anti-fragile mindset. A fragile person asks, why is this happening to me? An anti-fragile person asks, what can this teach me? A fragile person avoids every challenge. An anti-fragile person chooses challenges that create growth. A fragile person protects the past. An anti-fragile person prepares for the future. The sixth iron rule. The lesson of anti-fragility is, do not build a life that only works when everything goes perfectly. Build a life that becomes stronger when difficulties arrive. The goal is not to remove every storm. Storms are part of existence. The goal is to develop deeper roots. A tree growing in perfect conditions may grow quickly, but a tree that experiences wind develops strength beneath the surface. The wind does not destroy it. The wind trains it. Human beings are the same. Challenges reveal weaknesses. Reflection creates lessons. Lessons create improvement. Improvement creates strength. The world will test everyone. No one escapes uncertainty. But the person who develops antifragility gains a powerful advantage. They do not merely survive change. They use change as a tool for transformation. Pressure reveals you. Discipline rebuilds you. Adaptation strengthens you. Chapter 7: The Technology Revolution. The new survival battlefield. For most of human history, survival was determined by physical conditions. Humans fought against hunger, disease, weather, predators, physical danger. The strongest people were often those who could endure the harshest environments. But humanity changed its environment. We created tools, we created machines, we created systems, and now, the greatest survival challenge is no longer only physical, it is technological. The battlefield has changed. The question is no longer simply, who is the strongest? The question is, who can adapt fastest in a world that changes faster than ever before? The pattern of every technological revolution, every major technological revolution follows a similar pattern. A new invention appears. Old methods lose value. People fear the change. New opportunities emerge. Those who adapt gain an advantage. Those who refuse change struggle. Technology does not usually destroy human value completely. It changes where human value is found. The person who adapts moves upward. The person who refuses adaptation becomes replaceable. The agricultural revolution. Humanity changes its survival strategy thousands of years ago. Most humans survived through hunting and gathering. People depended directly on nature for food. Then agriculture transformed human life. Humans learned to cultivate crops, domesticate animals, create permanent settlements, build larger societies. This was one of the greatest adaptations in human history. The hunter-gatherer lifestyle was not inferior. It was simply suited for a different environment. When the environment changed, survival required a new approach. The Industrial Revolution. Machines changed the meaning of work. The Industrial Revolution created another massive transformation. Machines began performing tasks that humans had traditionally done manually. Factories replaced many traditional methods of production. Many people feared that machines would eliminate human work. In some cases, certain jobs disappeared, but new opportunities emerged. Engineers, designers, managers, scientists, entrepreneurs, technicians. The lesson: technology removes some forms of work while creating demand for new forms of value. The person who adapts does not ask, "What has technology taken away?" They ask, "What new opportunities has technology created?" The digital revolution. Information becomes the new resource. The computer and internet revolution changed almost every industry. Information became easier to create, store, share, analyze. Businesses transformed, communication transformed, education transformed, entertainment transformed. Companies that understood the digital world grew rapidly. Companies that protected old methods struggled. The world moved from physical systems toward information systems. Artificial intelligence, the next great adaptation test today. Humanity faces another major transition. Artificial intelligence. AI is changing the way people work. It can assist with analyzing information, generating ideas, automating repetitive tasks, recognizing patterns, supporting decisions, improving productivity. This creates a question that many people fear. Will machines replace humans? But history suggests a deeper question. Which humans will become more valuable because of machines? The human advantage is moving higher. In previous eras, people gained value through physical labor, memorization, repetitive tasks, following instructions. Machines are increasingly capable of performing many repetitive activities. Therefore, human advantage is moving toward higher-level abilities. Creativity, the ability to imagine possibilities. Machines can generate combinations of information, but humans create vision. Humans decide what is worth building. Judgment. Information is not wisdom. The world does not only need answers, it needs people who can decide which problems matter, which solutions are responsible, which choices create long-term value. Emotional intelligence. Humans are social beings. Trust, leadership, negotiation, and relationships remain essential. A machine can process information, but human connection remains a powerful advantage. Problem definition. One of the most valuable skills of the future is identifying the correct problem. Many people can search for answers. Fewer people know which questions are important. The Kodak lesson of technology. Technology creates a difficult challenge. Sometimes the future threatens the present. Kodak understood photography, but digital technology threatened the business model that made Kodak successful. The company faced a difficult choice: protect the profitable past or build the uncertain future. Many organizations fail because they protect what works today instead of preparing for what will work tomorrow. The Nokia lesson: Nokia dominated mobile phones. It had strong engineering, excellent hardware, global recognition. But the smartphone revolution changed the battlefield. The phone was no longer just a device for communication. It became a computer, a camera, an application platform, a digital ecosystem. The competition moved. Nokia was strong in the old environment, but the new environment required different strengths. The lesson: winning yesterday's game does not guarantee victory in tomorrow's game. The AI divide the future may create a new form of inequality, not only between those who have technology and those who do not, but between those who know how to use technology effectively and those who do not. Two people can have access to the same AI tools. One person uses them to learn faster, create businesses, improve productivity, solve complex problems. Another person uses them only for entertainment. The technology is the same. The difference is adaptation. The future worker. The future worker will increasingly be defined by problem-solving ability. The valuable person will not only ask, "What job do I have?" They will ask, "What problems can I solve?" The future belongs to people who combine skills. For example, a person who understands engineering and data, a person who understands business and technology, a person who understands creativity and artificial intelligence. The greatest advantages often come from combinations. Human intelligence plus machine intelligence. The future is unlikely to be only humans versus machines. It will increasingly become humans working with machines. A calculator did not eliminate mathematics. It changed what mathematicians could do. Computers did not eliminate knowledge. They changed how knowledge could be created. AI may follow the same pattern. The person who learns to direct technology gains power. The person who ignores technology risks becoming less competitive. Learning speed becomes the ultimate skill. In previous generations, a person could learn one profession and use that knowledge for decades. The modern world changes faster. The most valuable ability becomes learning, unlearning, and relearning. The survivor asks, "What do I need to know next?" Not, "What do I already know?" A person who continues learning remains adaptable. A person who stops learning slowly becomes outdated. The technology survival formula to survive technological change. 1. Become a lifelong learner. Your education does not end when school ends. 2. Understand technology. You do not need to understand every technical detail, but you must understand the tools shaping your world. 3. Combine skills. Unique combinations create unique value. 4. Protect human abilities. Develop creativity, communication, leadership, judgment. The 7th iron rule: technology does not destroy people. Technology destroys dependence on outdated methods. The person who adapts gains a new advantage. The person who refuses change loses relevance. The future will not ask, "How successful were you before?" It will ask, "How quickly can you become useful in the new world?" Because the ultimate technology survival skill is not knowing everything. It is having the ability to keep learning. The machine may become faster. The world may become more complex. Change may become unavoidable. But the human being who continues to evolve will always have a place. Chapter 8. The Survival of Nations. Why some countries rise while others decline throughout human history. Nations have risen and fallen according to the same law that governs every living system: adapt or decline. A country may possess vast resources. It may have a large population. It may have a powerful military. It may have a glorious history. But none of these guarantee permanent success, because the world changes. And nations, like individuals and companies, must evolve with it. The myth of permanent greatness: every powerful nation eventually faces the same temptation. The temptation to believe, "We have always been powerful, therefore we will always remain powerful." History repeatedly proves this wrong. Great civilizations have disappeared. Powerful empires have collapsed. Dominant economies have been replaced, not always because they lacked resources, but because they failed to adapt. A nation is not simply a piece of land. A nation is a system. Its survival depends on the quality of its people, the strength of its institutions, its ability to innovate, its willingness to reform, its capacity to learn. Resources create opportunity, but people create power. Many people believe natural resources are the foundation of national success. Resources matter Oil, minerals, fertile land, and strategic locations can provide advantages. But resources alone do not create greatness. History provides many examples of countries with enormous resources that struggled economically. At the same time, some countries with limited natural resources became global leaders. Why? Because the greatest resource of any nation is human capability. A country with educated, skilled, and innovative people can transform limited resources into prosperity. A country with poor institutions can waste abundant resources. The difference is adaptation. Japan. Rebuilding through transformation. Few examples demonstrate adaptation better than Japan. After World War II, Japan faced enormous destruction. Its cities had been damaged. Its industries had collapsed. Its economy was devastated. Many would have considered recovery almost impossible. But Japan chose transformation. Instead of attempting only to restore the past, Japan created a new future. It invested in education, technology, manufacturing, quality improvement, innovation. Japanese companies developed systems focused on continuous improvement. One important idea became known as Kaizen. The principle was simple. Small improvements, repeated consistently, create extraordinary results. Japan transformed itself from a devastated nation into one of the world's leading economies. The lesson: a nation survives not by returning to what it was, but by becoming what the future requires. South Korea, creating strength from weakness. South Korea provides another powerful example. After the Korean War, South Korea faced poverty, destruction, limited resources, economic challenges. At that time, few people would have predicted its future transformation. But South Korea focused on building human capability. It invested heavily in education, creating a highly skilled workforce, industry developing competitive manufacturing, technology moving from basic production toward innovation. Companies such as Samsung became global leaders in technology. South Korea transformed from one of the poorer countries into one of the world's most advanced economies. The lesson: a country does not need perfect conditions to succeed. It needs the ability to create better conditions. Singapore, turning limitations into advantages. Singapore provides another remarkable example. When it became independent in 1965, it faced serious challenges. It had limited land, few natural resources, a small domestic market. But it understood a crucial survival principle. You cannot control all your circumstances, but you can control your response. Singapore focused on education, infrastructure, efficient institutions, global trade, attracting investment. Instead of competing through natural resources, it competed through efficiency and knowledge. It turned limitations into advantages. Why nations decline? The fall of nations often follows patterns similar to the fall of companies. 1. Loss of innovation. A nation stops creating. It depends on past achievements. Other countries move ahead. 2. Weak institution systems become designed to protect certain groups instead of serving the future. When institutions cannot adapt, the entire society becomes less competitive. 3. Resistance to reform. Every successful system creates people who benefit from the current arrangement. Those people may resist change, but protecting the past can damage the future. 4. Decline of human capital. The most important resource of a nation is its people. When education, skills, and innovation decline, national strength declines. 5. Short-term thinking. Strong nations think beyond the present. They invest in future generations, research, infrastructure, knowledge. Weak systems often focus only on immediate rewards. The Soviet Union, strength in one area, weakness in another. The Soviet Union demonstrates an important lesson. It possessed enormous military power, scientific achievements, global influence. But power in one dimension cannot compensate for weakness in another. A nation can have weapons but lack economic flexibility. It can have territory but lack innovation. It can have influence but lack adaptability. True national strength requires balance. The survival equation of nations. A successful nation combines several forms of fitness. Economic fitness. Can the country create wealth? Technological fitness. Can it compete in innovation? Human fitness. Does it develop talented citizens? Institutional fitness. Can systems improve? Social fitness. Can people cooperate toward common goals? A weakness in one area can eventually threaten the entire system. The civilization test. Every nation eventually faces the same questions. Can we learn? Can we change? Can we innovate? Can we prepare? Can we unite? The answers determine whether a nation rises or declines. The personal lesson from nations. The same law applies to individuals. A person is like a small civilization. You have resources, abilities, systems, habits, beliefs. Your future depends on how well you manage and improve them. A person who invests in learning becomes stronger. A person who protects outdated habits becomes weaker. A person who adapts creates opportunities. The eighth iron rule, the survival rule of nations, is power comes not from what you possess, but from your ability to improve what you possess. Resources create potential. Adaptation creates power. The greatest nations are not those that never face crisis. They are those that transform crisis into renewal. They understand one timeless truth. The future belongs to societies that prepare for it. Chapter 9. The Final Human Test. Building an Unbreakable Survival Mindset. After studying nature, civilizations, companies, and technology, we arrive at the most important battlefield of all, the individual. Because every company begins with people. Every nation is built by people. Every transformation in history begins with individuals who decide to adapt. The final question is not about dinosaurs. It is not about empires. It is not about corporations. The final question is, when life changes your circumstances, what kind of person will you become? The illusion of stability. Human beings naturally seek stability. We want to believe our job will always be there. Our health will always remain strong. Our relationships will never change. Our skills will always be valuable. Our success will continue. But history teaches the opposite. Change is not an accident. Change is the normal condition of existence. A person who expects life to remain unchanged will always be surprised by difficulty. A person who accepts change prepares for it. The difference between them is not intelligence. It is mindset. The first survival skill, personal responsibility. The foundation of survival begins with ownership. A person with a survival mindset asks, what can I do? A person with a victim mindset asks, who is responsible? This does not mean every situation is fair. Life contains unequal opportunities, unexpected events, unfair circumstances. But survival requires focusing energy on what can be controlled. You cannot control every storm, but you can control whether you build stronger foundations before the storm arrives. Discipline, the hidden advantage. Many people search for motivation. But motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. Discipline is the ability to act even when emotions are not supporting you. It means learning when you do not feel like learning, training when you do not feel like training, saving when you want to spend, working when comfort is tempting. Discipline creates advantages quietly. Nobody sees the hours of preparation. Nobody sees the sacrifices. But when opportunity arrives, preparation becomes visible. The compound effect of improvement. Survival is rarely decided by one dramatic moment. It is usually created through small actions repeated over time. A person improves one skill, one habit, one decision, one relationship, day after day. Eventually, small improvements create a completely different person. This is the human version of evolution. Tiny adaptations accumulate. The person you become in 10 years is created by the choices you repeat today. Building valuable skills. In the modern world, your security does not come only from your position. A job title can disappear, an industry can change, a company can fail, but valuable skills remain with you. A survival-oriented person develops technical skills, the ability to perform useful work. Communication skills, the ability to explain ideas, influence people, and build trust. Problem-solving skills, the ability to create solutions. Learning skills, the ability to acquire new abilities. The most valuable skill in a changing world is the ability to become valuable again. Financial resilience. Money is not the meaning of life, but financial weakness can reduce freedom. A person with no financial preparation may be forced into decisions based on desperation. Financial strength creates options. A survival mindset with money focuses on creating value, controlling unnecessary spending, building reserves, investing wisely, developing multiple abilities. The goal is not simply wealth. The goal is independence and flexibility. Reputation, your invisible capital. Human beings survive through cooperation. Your reputation determines how others respond to you. A strong reputation creates opportunities. People trust those who are reliable, honest, disciplined, competent. Reputation is built slowly. Every action is a deposit. Every broken promise is a withdrawal. Over time, your name becomes an asset. A person with a strong reputation carries an invisible advantage into every environment. relationships and networks. The idea of the completely independent person is an illusion. Human beings have always survived through cooperation. We built families, communities, organizations, civilizations. Strength does not mean needing nobody. Strength means building valuable relationships while remaining capable yourself. The strongest people create networks based on trust, respect, mutual benefit. Emotional control under pressure. Pressure reveals the quality of a person's preparation. When problems arrive, some people panic, some blame others, some make emotional decisions. Others remain calm and search for solutions. Emotional control is a survival advantage. It does not mean having no emotions. It means emotions do not control your actions. A person who can remain clear during chaos has an advantage over someone controlled by fear. The Stoic survival principle. The ancient Stoics understood one of the most important survival lessons. They separated life into two categories: things within your control, things outside your control. You cannot control other people's opinions, the economy, unexpected events, the past. You can control your preparation, your actions, your discipline, your response. Energy wasted fighting reality is energy unavailable for adaptation. The danger of ego. One of the greatest enemies of survival is ego. Ego says, I already know enough. I cannot be wrong. I do not need to change. But reality does not reward pride. It rewards effectiveness. The person who can admit mistakes can improve. The person who protects their ego protects their weaknesses. Humility is not weakness. Humility is the ability to see reality clearly. The identity of a survivor. Fragile identity says, I am successful, but success can disappear. A stronger identity says, I am someone who can learn, adapt, and rebuild. If you lose a position, you can build again. If you lose money, you can create value again. If circumstances change, you can transform again. Your greatest asset is not what you currently possess. Your greatest asset is your ability to create again. Preparing for uncertainty. The goal is not predicting every future event. Nobody can do that. The goal is building capacity. Prepare your mind through knowledge and reflection, body through health and discipline, skills through continuous improvement, finances through responsibility, relationships through trust. Then when uncertainty arrives, you are not starting from nothing. You are starting from strength. The ninth iron rule, the final human survival principle is, do not build a life that only works when everything goes right. Build yourself into someone who can respond when things go wrong. The strongest person is not the person who never loses. The strongest person is the person who can lose, learn, rebuild, and return stronger. Because survival is not about avoiding every challenge. It is about becoming the type of person challenges cannot easily destroy. The world will test everyone. No one escapes change. No one escapes uncertainty. But those who develop discipline, adaptability, and self-mastery gain the greatest advantage. Your circumstances may change, your environment may change, the world may change. But if you continue evolving, you always carry the ability to survive. Chapter 10, the final iron rule, adapt or become history. Throughout this journey, we have followed one law across nature, history, business, technology, and human behavior. A law that has existed before humanity understood it. A law that continues operating whether people accept it or not. The law is simple. Everything that refuses to adapt eventually becomes irrelevant. The world does not remain still. The environment changes. Competition changes. Technology changes. Human needs change. The conditions that create success today may disappear tomorrow. And when those conditions disappear, everyone faces the same question. Can you become what the new world requires? The dinosaur lesson. The dinosaurs ruled the earth for millions of years. They were powerful, they were dominant, they were successful. But success in one environment does not guarantee survival in another. When conditions changed, their previous advantages were no longer enough. Their size became a limitation. Their specialization became a weakness. Their dominance became history. The lesson is not that the dinosaurs were failures. They were among the most successful creatures ever to exist. The lesson is, even the greatest success has an expiration date when adaptation stops. The empire lesson throughout history, powerful civilizations rose and fell. The Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Soviet Union, the British Empire, each possessed enormous strength, each achieved remarkable accomplishments. But none could escape the law of change. Their decline was not simply because enemies became stronger. Often the deeper problem was internal. resistance to change, outdated systems, inability to reform, attachment to previous methods. A powerful system can survive external attacks, but it struggles when it can no longer improve itself. The business lesson: companies face the same reality. Kodak did not fail because it lacked knowledge. It failed because the future threatened its successful past. Nokia did not fail because it lacked engineers. It failed because the definition of competition changed. Blockbuster did not disappear because people stopped watching movies. It disappeared because people changed how they wanted to access entertainment. The greatest danger for any successful organization is believing what made us successful before will always make us successful. Success should create confidence, but it should also create curiosity. The successful person asks, what is changing? What am I missing? What must I learn next? The psychology lesson: the greatest barrier to adaptation is often not external, it is internal. Humans resist change because change threatens comfort, identity, security, beliefs. A person may know they need to improve but avoid the discomfort of growth. A company may know it needs innovation but fear losing current profits. A nation may know reforms are needed but protect old systems. The battle for survival begins inside the mind. The technology lesson: technology has accelerated the speed of change. Artificial intelligence, automation, digital systems, global connectivity. The world is transforming faster than previous generations experienced. The future will not belong only to those who have knowledge. It will belong to those who can continuously acquire new knowledge. The ability to learn becomes more valuable than any single skill. The question is no longer, what do you know? The question becomes, how quickly can you learn what you need to know? The antifragile lesson: difficulty is not always destruction. Sometimes difficulty is development. A muscle grows stronger because it experiences resistance. A person develops confidence because they overcome challenges. A company improves because competition forces innovation. The goal is not to create a life without problems. That life does not exist. The goal is to create a life where problems create growth. The final survival formula: after examining nature, history, and human behavior, we can identify the qualities of survivors. Awareness: see reality clearly. Do not ignore changes because they are uncomfortable. Humility: accept that yesterday's knowledge may not solve tomorrow's problems. Discipline: build strength before difficulty arrives. Learning continuously: update yourself. Adaptability: change when reality demands change. Resilience: recover when life creates setbacks. Purpose: have a reason strong enough to continue through difficulty. The ultimate iron rule: the final rule is not destroy others before they destroy you. It is not only the strongest deserve success. It is not never experience weakness. The deeper rule is become so adaptable, disciplined, and capable that changing circumstances cannot easily break you. The strongest person is not the one who controls everything. Nobody controls everything. The strongest person is the one who can respond intelligently when control disappears. The greatest companies are not those that never face disruption. They are those that use disruption to become better. The greatest nations are not those that never experience crisis. They are those that transform crisis into renewal. The greatest individuals are not those who never fail. They are those who use failure as a teacher. The final question: every person eventually faces moments when life changes the rules. A career ends, a business fails, a relationship changes, a technology replaces an old method, a new challenge appears. At that moment, the world asks, who are you now? Will you be someone who depends on the past, or someone who can create a future? Because your greatest advantage is not your current position, it is your ability to rebuild. You can lose possessions, you can lose opportunities, you can lose status. But if you maintain the ability to learn, adapt, and create value, you still possess the most important survival tool: yourself. Final words: the world has always followed the same law. The ocean does not stop creating waves. The seasons do not stop changing. Time does not stop moving. Life does not stop demanding growth. The question is not whether change will come. It already has. The question is whether you will be prepared. Because in the end, the strongest are not always the survivors. The smartest are not always the survivors. The richest are not always the survivors. The survivors are those who continue becoming, those who learn, those who adapt, those who evolve, adapt or disappear, evolve or become history. Continue growing because the world never stops changing. Final epilogue. The last survivor, the person who refuses to stop becoming. At the beginning of this journey, we started with a simple question. What allows something to survive in a world that never stops changing? We searched for the answer in nature. We searched through the rise and fall of civilizations. We studied companies that dominated their industries and disappeared. We examined technology, psychology, and human behavior. And everywhere we looked, the same pattern appeared. The world changes, the environment changes, the rules change. And survival belongs to those who can change with it. The oldest law of existence before humans created ideas about success and failure. Nature had already established its own principle. A species survives by adapting. A tree survives by responding to its environment. An animal survives by adjusting to challenges. A human survives by learning and transforming. The law is not cruel. It is simply reality. Nature does not hate the weak. Reality does not punish people personally. The environment simply rewards what works. A fish survives because it is adapted to water. A bird survives because it is adapted to flight. A human survives because of the ability to learn. The greatest human advantage, human beings were never the strongest creatures on Earth. We were not the fastest. We were not the largest. We did not possess natural weapons like many predators. But we possessed something unique. The ability to imagine a future that does not yet exist. Humans created tools. We created languages. We created systems. We created knowledge that could be passed from one generation to another. A person could learn from someone who lived hundreds of years earlier. This ability transformed humanity. Our greatest weapon has always been adaptation. The danger of becoming yesterday's person. Every person carries a hidden risk. The person you became yesterday may not be the person required tomorrow. The skills that created your first success may not create your next success. The habits that helped you survive one stage of life may become limitations in another. A child must adapt into an adult. A student must adapt into a professional. A worker must adapt as industries change. A leader must adapt as responsibilities increase. Life is a continuous process of becoming. The mistake is believing, I have arrived, because the moment you stop becoming, you begin declining. The survivor's mind, the survivor, thinks differently. When facing difficulty, they ask, what is this teaching me? What can I improve? What opportunity exists inside this challenge? The survivor does not deny reality. They study it. They do not waste all their energy complaining about conditions they cannot control. They focus on building strength for conditions they must face. The importance of self-mastery. The greatest survival battle is not against other people. It is against yourself. Against laziness, fear, pride, impatience, comfort, denial. A person who cannot control themselves becomes controlled by circumstances. A person who masters themselves gains freedom. This is why ancient philosophers placed such importance on discipline. They understood. A person who governs their own mind is harder to defeat. The future will test everyone. The future will bring challenges that previous generations never experienced. Technology will continue advancing. Artificial intelligence will transform industries. Economic systems will change. New problems will appear. But every challenge carries an opportunity. The same technology that removes old jobs creates new possibilities. The same crisis that destroys weak systems can strengthen prepared ones. The same failure that ends one chapter can begin another. The difference is not always the event. The difference is the person experiencing it. The final survival code to survive in an uncertain world. Stay curious, because curiosity keeps you learning. Stay humble, because humility allows you to improve. Stay disciplined, because discipline turns potential into ability. Stay adaptable, because the world will never stop changing. Stay valuable, because value creates opportunities. The final iron rule. After everything we have explored, the conclusion is simple. Do not build your life around the expectation that the world will remain the same. Build yourself into someone who can succeed when the world changes. You cannot control every event. You cannot predict every crisis. You cannot prevent every loss. But you can control your preparation. You can control your response. You can control your willingness to grow. The last survivor is not the person with the most power. It is not the person with the most money. It is not the person with the highest position. The last survivor is the person who refuses to stop learning. The person who can lose and rebuild. The person who can fail and improve. The person who can enter a new world and become valuable again. Because the greatest strength a human being can possess is not the ability to remain unchanged. It is the ability to transform. The world will continue moving. New generations will rise. Old systems will disappear. New challenges will arrive. But one principle will remain forever. Those who adapt survive. Those who evolve continue. Those who refuse to change become history. Iron rule. Survival of the fittest, not the strongest. Not the richest. Not the most powerful. But the most adaptable. Adapt. Evolve. Grow. Because survival is not about defeating change. Survival is about becoming someone who can face it.